It's a Hollywood blockbuster about a superhero, but that's just part of the Black Panther phenomenon. Is this revolutionary movie igniting a movement?
Don't freeze.
I never freeze.
The Black Panther superhero was here to save the world, but he represents so much more than that.
Black Panther is a comic book character who was created by Lee and Jack Kirby in 1966. He actually predates the Black Panther Party, which is kind of interesting. People don't realize that, but they both came out in the same year. And he's a king, he's a warrior, he's a scientist. He's really an alpha male on a whole nother level.
The Black Panther is king of a fictional, technologically advanced African country that hides its riches and intellectual wealth from the world, until the Black Panther must fulfill his destiny.
My son, it is your time.
I'm very, very enthusiastic about sharing this with the world, especially because it has a lot of substance to it.
There's great action, strong female characters, a multi-layered plot, and a predominantly black cast. It's groundbreaking in many ways.
You have a $200 million budget given to a person of color, Ryan Coogler, 31 years old, has only directed 2 other films prior to this, Fruitvale Station and Creed, and he's given the keys to a big franchise like Black Panther.
I think if we did our job right, you know, as filmmakers with this movie, anybody will watch Black Panther, see the Wakandans and see these people, but still see themselves.
Its positive portrayals of a black civilization untouched by racism or colonialism can have a profound effect, especially on children.
We've all been conditioned to see Africa and Africa's children, whether they be in Africa or in Brooklyn, in a negative light. And I think this is going to be something that helps to kind of defy some of those stereotypes.
Anytime an individual can see themselves in a positive light, that can only increase their self-esteem.
This film is already having a huge impact on and off screen. Let's find out what our panel has to say. Joining us is Brian Favors. He's the co-founder of the Nate Parker Foundation and also an educator. Brian, great to have you with us.
Good to be here.
Also with us is Clayton Davis. He's editor-in-chief of awardscircuit.com. He's also a film critic. Clayton, great to have you with us.
Thanks for having me.
Also with us is Chuck Creekmur. He's the founder and CEO of allhiphop.com, and he's also a comic book expert. Chuck, great to have you with us.
Thank you.
Chuck, explain to everyone who may not know, who is the Black Panther?
So the Black Panther is the first major black superhero. It came out in 1965. Actually predated the Black Panther Party, which a lot of people don't realize. And he was co-created by Stan Lee, who's still alive, 95-year-old Jewish man. But he had a vision for a superhero that represented Africa, but more importantly, the most advanced cultural society that we ever have seen.
On the planet?
On the planet.
All right. Clayton, you've seen the movie. Tell us about it. Is it as great as everyone is saying?
It is what Wonder Woman meant to women, this will mean for black people. It is the first instance of culture blending through the genre. Marvel has tapped into something incredible, something that we probably have never seen from them before. It's personal, it's action-packed, it's culturally significant, it checks all the boxes. It's probably one of the most important films we've been given in the last few years.
Brian, in terms of important films, I mean, obviously entertaining, it's going to be a blockbuster by all accounts in terms of how many people go to see it, but tell us why you feel it's so significant culturally.
This is important for African culture throughout the diaspora. We know in film, we just don't have a lot of stories that highlight the African legacy. You know, when I was young, if you would have called me an African, I would have taken it as a derogatory term. A lot of us don't know our history. We don't know that legacy. So a film that is so mainstream and dropping so many gems is just critical to our cultural esteem. And I think that's why people are so excited about it.
And give us the idea, because this goes, Chuck, we've had this discussion with hip hop as well too, where people don't want to be known as the black DJ, the Latino DJ, the white DJ. They just want to be the great DJ or just the great artist. Does this take the Black Panther isn't just a black superhero, he's a superhero for everyone. How does that change the game?
Well,
and everybody feel free to jump in.
I think, obviously, I mean, look, we want to claim it as ours, quote unquote, because we haven't seen a superhero in this manner. And he's more than a superhero, he's a king. And I think people need to identify that he is more than just a superhero. He's a king, he's a warrior, intellectually, he's a genius. So when you transfer that to the broader community, he is someone for everyone to aspire to be like. And I think that's a wonderful thing. I was saying on another program a few years ago, I went as the Black Panther. I go to Comic-Cons like at least one a year, maybe more. That particular year I went to about 4, and San Diego was one as well. But if you know San Diego, it's not the, people of color are, kind of few and far in between. So,
Right.
But when I went as the Black Panther, white kids loved it. I mean, some wanted to take pictures. A mother would be like, my son loves your costume. You know what I mean?
Right.
So it's an amazing phenomenon, and white kids love Black Panther just like black kids, but I do think it means something different to us than it would to your average kid.
Yeah.
Guy, jump in, please.
Yeah, I was gonna say what co-writer and director Ryan Coogler has done is not just take a superhero and just like present them to the world
And turn him into a black figure, and now it's the
No.
same. It's not like a template.
Yeah, he makes Black Panther, yes, be an inspiration for someone we want to be like, but also makes an internal conflict within us as we're watching it. Like what do
you mean by that?
Where the black experience has been, like they address racism in the movie and why the oppression of black people has been so prevalent. And here on this great nation, the greatest nation on earth, people are rattling with that fact about why are we not going out there and helping the oppressed. That is a great.
Yeah.
It's one of the great arcs of the movie. It gives a thematic weight. The villain, quote unquote villain in the movie, you almost like want to say, is he really a villain? Because what he's doing is wanting to save us. He wants to save the world. That's what makes it on a whole new level, something that we haven't seen before.
Don't spoil the movie.
And I would just say, and as someone who hasn't seen the movie, it makes sense because the African contribution to the world has been for everyone. Africa is the cradle of civilization. We built pyramids. Our relationship to math and science, and we don't learn that stuff. I mean, when we think of creators, we think of people that don't look like us. But it is important to understand that, it actually does make sense because that's the cradle of civilization. So this is, in my mind, even though I haven't seen it, it's a reminder. That's why my son reads the comic books, and although it's kind of a utopia, it also speaks to that past legacy that has been erased.
The truth is, it really represents what African people would be had they not been invaded and had racism not pillaged the mines and the actual soil. That's really
And
what
that's a
this
power,
movie is.
and that's a powerful vision for people to see.
Yeah, definitely.
And then Clayton, in terms of the level of acting, the level of just all of the production levels.
I said after the screening, I said Michael B. Jordan meet Tom Hiddleston because you guys will share the same sentence as the greatest Marvel villains that we've ever had. And you guys will live in the same sentence forever.
Absolutely.
What's beautiful about it, I mean, obviously what we see is great, but it's what Ryan Coogler did behind the camera.
And Ryan Coogler is the co-writer
and director. It's about, we have a production designer who is African American. Ruthie Carter is a costume designer, 2-time Academy Award nominated. We have a South African co-editing the film. This is front to back the black experience on all levels, not just story, but on production value.
All right, we're talking about the Black Panther phenomenon. I'm your host, Lisa Evers. We'll be back right after this.
I've told people that we're going to be talking about this movie for months and months and maybe years and years.
In terms of the audience for this, because when they look at movies and are planning movies for Hollywood, there's always who's going to go to see this. But this obviously was designed in such a way for everybody, right, Clayton?
Yeah, so I think on its face, I think this can be a mistake in our media coverage of it, is that it's for black people and black people should go see it, and it's taking place in Black History Month, and that's a good sell to them. It's more than that. It transcends all cultures because Wakanda, which is the African nation where the film takes place, they touch on subjects that are evident today. Like, there is a nod to the political climate that we're in right now. So this doesn't just speak to one specific group. This can transcend to many different ones.
Brian, in terms of the educational value of it, because it's like we look at history and there's always there's this ongoing argument among educators that Black history should not be separated. It should be integrated and woven into all history, and part of it, not taking the month away, but in terms of how we look at it. So it's not just like, okay, well, you're Black, so you need to know Black history. It's like everyone should know it.
Right. I mean,
what do you think about that?
Well, Carter G. Woodson, it was Black History Week, and then it turned into a month, I believe, in the 70s. But the goal was to ultimately get to a point to where our history was American history, but that's not the case. And I think it's so significant. I mean, think about Donald Trump's comments about where we come from. And I think in most people's minds, when you think of Africa, when you think of Haiti, when you think of where we come from, you think of all these negative thoughts and you think of all these problems. And I think here we have a film that really speaks to the greatness of Africa, to the possibility of Africa. And like my brother said, you know, this is what we would have been had we not been interrupted by colonialism and slavery. So there's and not to mention, you know, the issues that are raised in the film that I haven't seen. But I think that you can have a good time with this film. I'm taking my son on Friday, while at the same time building his esteem and allowing him to have cultural pride in a time where that's hard. It's very hard.
And in terms of the messaging of it, Clayton, is it heavy, or is it part of the story, or?
No, and I think probably unfortunate because of the hype, because we just saw it. I think we're painting it like it's going to be very heavy-handed, and it isn't. There is an enjoyable blockbuster story here. I think it broke the Fandango pre-sale record, you know, for all Marvel movies. The messaging is simple, and it creates a complex theme within yourself, because that's great villains, that's great stories. Is it really is your villain just as complex as your hero? What are they saying? What's at stake, and what mistakes have been made, and is there shame that goes with it? You know, and it isn't just like, you know, white people, you know, you guys messed up. It's what have Black people done for other Black people as well? I think that becomes a very attractive thing.
So that really adds to the whole discussion as well.
And that's what brings the emotional arc. I think that's where, towards the end of the movie, I almost felt like I was going to be in tears, because I was just like, this speaks to more than just like what people have done to the Black culture. It's about what are we doing about it now, and what are we doing for ourselves, and not just using it as a crutch to lean on,
or as an excuse.
As an excuse,
or blaming
classic
people.
Right now, by the way.
Say it again.
Your face is classic right now. It's. I've told people that we're going to be talking about this movie for months and months, and maybe years and years, because the layers. There's so many different layers, and when you look at what Ryan Coogler did, and how there's such subtle nuances that honestly the broader community is going to miss a lot in this movie. But there's so many teachable moments for us, from the connection to, not to give away spoilers, but
you got to give us something.
I'm gonna say it, because the connection to Oakland, if you know anything about Black Panthers, there's a connection to Oakland as well, and there's a lot of subtleties there, and it's got so many layers. I mean, we'll be unpacking this for a while.
No, I just want to say, and in the fact that it's an entertaining movie, you know, they say you learn more when you go to enjoy it as opposed to going into a class. And I think, you know, I had a chance to work on Birth of a Nation, and that was great. We were able to take students, but you knew you were going to get your history. And I think one of the things and it was still powerful, don't get me wrong, but I think something like this, my son reads these comic books for enjoyment and still gets those cultural gems. So I think that's something that's really significant about this.
What about the messages? Because, you know, we talk about this in the context of the show and our audience and in our communities, but you look at America nationally, it's still predominantly a white nation. So this film has the chance to be seen by a vast majority of white communities, where their only contact with the Black culture is through hip hop music or through sports. What do you think? What impact do you think that's going to have?
I mean, there's still a perception about what black media is, and I was telling them before the show that it's gonna be very interesting to see, because we're on the coast, so seeing black people with us and getting all riled up in the movie and being excited, that's normal for us. But my sister lives in Richmond, Virginia, and she's gonna go see it on opening day, so I'm like dying to know what is that gonna be like down there, or what Middle America, how they're gonna interpret this. Those are all really interesting questions that need to be asked.
Let me talk about the women in Black Panther, because the women a lot of times have always been kind of the sidekick or the girlfriend or the one that the superhero goes to talk to when he's in trouble and having doubts or whatever, and then they're kind of like ancillary characters. But you're saying in Black Panther
they're smart, they're wise, they can fight, they can defend themselves. They're not like being constantly saved, they're not the damsel in distress. They are being the strong suit. I mean, when you watch the film on its face, you'll see how little that Black Panther probably has to do a lot in the movie, until like you really pull it all together and like, no, he's just surrounded by great people, and a lot of them are women.
His security force are all women.
And Angela Bassett plays his mother.
Yes,
right?
absolutely. Yeah, she's wonderful.
And shows a whole different way of women really just being out there.
And again, it's about giving it to black women. They're not just used as hot commodities or the hot girls in a music video. They're used to inspire a whole nation of black women that are oppressed and that are living in poverty and that don't think right now that they can do better.
And girls, by the way. My daughter's 14, and I just can't wait to take her to see it.
Yeah. And this is in line, once again, with African history. I would always tell my students, but we have Queen Nzinga, who fought the Portuguese off for decades.
Right.
So we have a history of strong African queens. Even when we look at the cross, which comes from the Ankh, and if anybody that knows anything about the Ankh, it's about the balance of male and female. So this idea of the passive woman is very European and Western. So once again, this film is taking us back to our roots. This is the Sankofa film.
Shout out to all the warrior women in the actual Black Panther Party too.
Yes, indeed.
Know your history.
Yes, indeed.
No, totally with the history. Let's talk about the authenticity, because obviously a white moviegoer seeing this from a predominantly white community is going to look at this in a different way than a black person going to see it. But has this movie succeeded, from you guys who have seen it, to be able to appeal to the quote unquote mainstream multiracial masses, but still keep a level of black authenticity for the black audiences?
Absolutely. It's a great movie. First and foremost, a great story, a great plot, great acting, great special effects. So first and foremost, the foundation for a great movie is all present and accounted for. And then you get these subtleties, and then you get these heavier themes and messages. But if you do a crappy movie that has everything else that's really good, it's still a crappy movie. It's still not entertaining. And that's what I think ultimately will resonate with audiences of any background, race, color, creed.
And then the cinematographer's a female too.
Yes, Rachel.
How unusual is that for a big budget Hollywood?
Non-existent. I mean, it's Rachel Morrison, first woman nominated for Best Cinematography at the Oscars this year, who shot Mudbound, which was by Dee Reese, who's also Oscar nominated this year. First black woman, I think, nominated in adapted screenplay. So yes, I mean, Ryan Coogler assembled the troops and said it's not just going to be in front of the camera, it's going to be behind the camera as well. But I think it reinvents the whole idea of Hollywood's idea of black culture. They're used to seeing us shackled in chains, 12 years a slave, like that's the stuff. So I mean, I don't know how a non-black person will watch the movie and what kind of lens. I like to be fair about it and say, they may not get it the way we do. It may not resonate or feel. They may not get those tears in their eyes.
But it's still going to have an impact.
But if they're just entertained and say, hey, that was a really good movie and it was good to just watch, like, I'm okay with that, because that will allow more movies like this to be made.
Want to thank all of you for being with us.
Thank
for
you.
this episode of Street Soldiers, Brian Favors, Clayton Davis, and Chuck Creekmur. Thank you guys so much for this episode of Street Soldiers on the Black Panther phenomenon. I'm your host, Lisa Evers. Remember, use your mind. It's your best weapon. I hope it's your only weapon. Let's push for peace.